Hi readers, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my Weekend Books World War II edition and also some mid-year reflections on books and reading, mostly books. Anywho, let's get started, shall we? Last night I stayed up way past my bedtime watching a show on Nat Geo called Erased, World War II Heroes of Color. It's narrated by Idris Elba, and I love him, by the way. And it covers 4 different, I guess battles is the right word. It starts off with Pearl Harbor, then it goes to D-Day, then it goes to Dunkirk, and then it goes to the Battle of the Bulge. This show was so good. Like I said, I stayed up way past my bedtime. I will probably watch it again. It was that good. Anywho, it really introduced me to some characters that in World War II that I was not aware of, and some that I was only aware of more recently with the Garrett Graff book that I read, When the Sea Came Alive. So, naturally, I went online, and hey, I was really good. I went online, purchased online for pickup in store, and when I got to the store, the only additional thing that I bought was an iced matcha latte. I did not even look at other books, so I came out with only what I had purchased online except for the matcha. So, I meant to go get my other glasses, but was stuck with these. The first book that I picked up is Forgotten, the Untold Story of D-Day's Black Heroes at Home and at War by Linda Hervieux. I'm probably butchering the last name. I also have crap on my shoulder. Anywho. Tom Brokaw calls this an utterly compelling account, long overdue. In the early hours of June 6, 1944, the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion, a unit of African-American soldiers, landed on the beaches of France. Their orders were to man a curtain of armed balloons meant to deter enemy aircraft. One member of the 320th would be nominated for the Medal of Honor, an award he would never receive. The nation's highest decoration was not given to black soldiers in World War II. Drawing on newly uncovered military records and dozens of original interviews with surviving members of the 320th and their families, Linda Hervieux tells the story of these heroic men charged with an extraordinary mission whose contributions to one of the most celebrated events in modern history have been overlooked. Members of the 320th and thousands of other African Americans were sent abroad to fight for liberties denied them at home. In England and throughout Europe, these soldiers discovered freedom they had not known in a homeland that treated them as second-class citizens, experiences they carried back to America, fueling the budding civil rights movement. Hervieux offers a vivid account of the tension between racial politics and national service in wartime America, and a moving narrative of human bravery and perseverance in the face of injustice. I can't tell if this woman was in the picture is way too small. She may have been in the documentary. There was a woman in there who'd written a book. Again, I need to rewatch that. This was copyright 2016. Wow. I will rewatch that and check it out. Anywho, right now I'm reading The Storm of War by Andrew Roberts, I believe. But when that is done, I'm going to pick up as my nonfiction Forgotten, for sure. Next up, there's another book that I want. I'll talk about it now, but whether I get it, I'll talk about more in my mid-year reflections. It's called Black Panthers, and I really want that. I have to wait till payday. It's about a tanker battalion, and I'm going to make an exception to what I say in my mid-year reflections here and later on to get that book. They didn't have it at Barnes & Noble for pickup, otherwise I would have got it today. I wonder if they'll ship. Anywho, I should wait till payday. Anywho, let's go on with the next book I got was Half American, The Heroic Story of African Americans Fighting in World War II at Home and Abroad by Matthew F. Delmont. This was a New York Times notable book. It was published in 2022. I think I can read this without my glasses. This was the winner of the 2023 Anisfield Wolf Book Award for Nonfiction. I don't know what that award is. More than 1 million black soldiers served in World War II, laying down their lives at Normandy? Can I talk today, please? Iwo Jima and the Battle of the Bulge, all while waging a dual battle against inequality at home. The stories of these black veterans have long been cast aside in favor of the mythic good war fought by the greatest generation, and you still hear that today. Yet without their sacrifices, the United States could not have won the war. Half American is World War II history as you've likely never read it before. It tells the story of black military heroes and civil rights icons such as Benjamin O. Davis Jr., the leader of the legendary Tuskegee Airmen, Thurgood Marshall, the chief lawyer for the NAACP, poet Langston Hughes, who I love, who worked as a war correspondent for the black press. Pause for a second. I absolutely adore Langston Hughes. I know I have not talked about him. I have several of his books. One down here it's a book of short stories called The Ways of White Folks. I was introduced to him in college and have loved him ever since. If his name is on it, I will buy it. Anywho, one day I will do a post solely about Langston Hughes, but that day is not today. I got distracted because I did not realize that he was in this book. Ella Baker, the civil rights leader who advocated for black soldiers, veterans, and their families, and James G. Thompson, the 26-year-old who set in motion the Double Victory campaign. Inspiring and galvanizing, Half American honors those who dared to fight not just for democracy abroad, but for their dreams of a freer and more equal America. And oh my goodness, I did not realize this had Langston Hughes in it. This is going up there, and it's got larger font, and it's just at 307 pages. That's going right up there after Forgotten. I need to hurry up with the Storm of War. Okay. Last book that I bought from Barnes & Noble's, no, sorry, not last. Last book on this subject. Next is a similar subject, but I wanted to talk about this. If you follow my channel, you know I have many books on the World War, specifically World War II, but also World War I. And most of them are nonfiction, but I've also got quite a collection of World War II fiction books, primarily about women, and I'm really enamored with the French Resistance and the SOE. But to date, I only have one book that talks about Black Americans in World War II, and that is Women of the Post by Joshunda Sanders. This is a novel, and Alice Walker says, Sanders has offered back to the culture a missing part of its soul. So, I'll tell you what this is about since I brought it up. 1944, New York City. Judy Washington is tired of having to work at the Bronx slave market, cleaning white women's houses for next to nothing. She dreams of a bigger life, but with her husband fighting overseas, it's up to her and her mother to earn enough for food and rent. When she's recruited to join the Women's Army Corps, offering a steady paycheck and the chance to see the world, Judy jumps at the opportunity. During training, Judy becomes fast friends with the other women in her unit, Stacy, Bernadette, and Mary Alice, who all come from different cities and circumstances. Under Second Officer Caddick-Adams' leadership, they receive orders to sort over 1 million pieces of mail in England, becoming the only unit of black women to serve overseas in World War II. The women work diligently, knowing that they're reuniting soldiers with their loved ones through their letters. However, their work becomes personal when Mary Alice discovers a backlogged letter addressed to Judy. Told through the alternating perspectives of Judy, Charity, Mary Alice, Women of the Post is an unforgettable story of perseverance, female friendship, and self-discovery. So this is, and I have looked for books about Black Americans in World War II before. To date, this was the only one I could find at my local Barnes & Noble. So while I was ordering these two, I did a search, kind of quick Google search, quick Goodreads search, and I could only find one book, yet again, about this time Black women in World War II, and it was again about the Women's Army Corps and Women of the Post. This is called Sisters in Arms by Kaia Alderson. It's a novel of daring Black women who served during World War II. This was published in... Kate Quinn gives it a shout out, calls it a triumph. This was published in 2021. Women of the Post was published in 2023. So, okay, it's on the inside. As the first and only all-black battalion of Women's Army Corps, the legendary 6888, it doesn't say if this is about the 6888, but it almost has to be, right? These brave women risked their lives to serve with honor against incredible odds. Grace Steele and Eliza Jones may be from completely different backgrounds, but when it comes to the Army, specifically the Women's Army Corps, whack. They are both starting from the same level. Not only will they be among the first class of female officers the Army has ever seen, they are also the first Black women allowed to serve. As these courageous women helped to form the 6888 Central Post Directory Battalion, the 6888, they deal with more than just Army bureaucracy. Everyone is determined to see this experiment fail. For two Northern women, learning to navigate their way through the segregated Army may be tougher than boot camp. Grace and Eliza know that there is no room for error. They must be more perfect than everyone else. When they finally make it overseas, to England and then to France, to ensure American servicemen receive word from their loved ones, Grace and Eliza will at last be able to do their part for the country they love, whatever the risk to themselves. Based on the true story of the 6888th Central Postal Directory Battalion, Sisters in Arms explores the untold story of what life was like for the only all-black female U.S. battalion to be deployed overseas during World War II. This is going up there in the to-read. I keep saying, oh, maybe I'll do a Christmas in July, and then shoot off a random book. But this one, yeah. Okay. So, I started off talking about the Nat Geo program I watched. It was four episodes. And the third episode, I believe, so it was Pearl Harbor, D-Day, third episode was on Dunkirk. And in Dunkirk, they focused not on Black Americans, but Indian British, as in Indians who were under British colonial rule at the time. Please forgive me, I do not know a lot about British Indian history, but I did learn a little bit more than I knew last night. So the one on Dunkirk focused on several Indian officers and their different experiences at Dunkirk. One got captured, one made it to Dunkirk. Again, I really need to go rewatch it. And they talked also about how, like the Black Americans, they didn't have complete freedom because they were under British colonial rule. And then they talked briefly about what happened when the British pulled out and how devastating that was to Indian society. Again, please forgive me, my knowledge of that history is minimal, like minuscule. I know a lot more about World War II than Indian history. And I did not think to look up any of those individuals when I was looking at Barnes & Noble, but I did stumble across online, didn't buy it in the thing, a book about Native Americans. And again, people who did not have complete freedom at home, but were fighting for others to have that freedom. And that was Code Talker, the first and only memoir by one of the original Navajo code talkers of World War II, Chester Nez, with Judith Schiess, Avila. I don't know if it includes the actual Navajo code and rare photos. I don't suppose you'd be able to use Navajo code now that it's in books, but if it ever came to it. It's got great pictures. It seems really interesting. Okay. His name wasn't Chester Nez. That was the English name he was assigned in kindergarten. And in boarding school at Fort Defiance, he was punished for speaking his native language as the teacher sought to rid him of his culture and traditions. But discrimination didn't stop Chester from answering the call to defend his country after Pearl Harbor. For the Navajo have always been warriors, and his upbringing on a New Mexico reservation gave him the strength, both physical and mental, to excel as a Marine. During World War II, the Japanese had managed to crack every code the U.S. had used, but when the Marines turned to its Navajo recruits to develop and implement a secret military language, they created the only unbroken code in modern warfare and helped assure victory for the United States over Japan in the South Pacific. Now, if I remember correctly, there were, perhaps not Navajo, but Native American speakers who worked in intelligence or some kind of code passing in World War I. But again, very minimal knowledge on that. I only read a brief thing on that, or listened to a podcast. So I find so many books that I just really, really want to read now. And then this is going up there after the other two. Oh my God, I'm about to have an avalanche of books. Here. Try to avoid that avalanche. So I got two more. These I had purchased on Amazon last week sometime. I purchased them because of the D-Day books that I'm reading or listening to. Because right now I'm listening to a D-Day book. The first one is Ste-Mere, Eglise, June 1944, No Better Place to Die, The Battle for La Fiere Bridge by Robert M. Murphy. And again, I'm looking at this and I'm like, ooh, that's going to be my next read. So there's not a summary of this book, but there's a lot of pictures in here. It looks really good. Colonel S.L.A. Marshall says, La Fiere is probably the bloodiest small unit struggle in the experience of American arms. Matthew Ridgway, commanding general of the 82nd Airborne at the time, said, as hot a single battle as any U.S. troops had at any time during the war in Europe. General James M. Gavin, whose name I know, but I've forgotten what he did, the hottest single incident I experienced in all my combat service, both in Europe and later in Korea. I'm going to have to look him up because I know that name and I've heard it recently and I am totally drawing a blank. I'm drawing a blank. He was involved in this. I know, I go on rants about people getting history wrong, but my memory on retaining things I read in books is not great. But when it's a huge thing, I can remember. Like when D-Day happened and when the Americans entered the war. Now I'm on the hunt for Gavin. 12. Okay, Gavin was the assistant division commander for the 82nd. Ridgway was the commander of the 82nd Airborne Division. I remember that. Okay, so again, another one I want to read right now. The next one is one I know I won't read now because it weighs a ton. It is called Sand and Steel, The D-Day Invasion and the Liberation of France by Peter Caddick-Adams. This was published in 2019. And something that I listened to in Garrett Graff's book, When the Sea Came Alive, and in the Nat Geo special last night, is how people of color are not mentioned in the big histories of D-Day or World War II. So one of the individuals he was a medic on Omaha Beach. Don't let me be wrong. Waverly Woodson. And I heard about him first in Graff's book, and then they did a deep dive into him in the Erased series. He's in this book. He's not mentioned in this book, which was published in 2019. He's not mentioned in Ambrose's D-Day book that I'm listening to. I checked the index. He's not mentioned in The Longest Day, and yet he saved people's lives acting as a medic, even though he was not wounded himself. Anywho. But Sand and Steel, nevertheless, will be a reference book for my World War II studies. And that concludes my World War II portion of my week in books. I have, I think, one more book coming in that I pre-ordered on World War II, and I think for a while I'm going to stop on buying more books. We come now to the mid-year reflections. And I had some goals that I thought about at the beginning of the year. They've completely changed, which is fine. But I do not have too many books. I have been buying more books than I should buy. What I really want to focus on is from July at least through the end of September is not buying $100 worth of books a week. I'm going to try to. This does not count my subscriptions. I've got a book of the month, and I've got Nightworms, a horror subscription that comes in monthly. I'm leaving those alone. They can continue. But I'm going to try to stick to just new releases that I have been anticipating or that I know I will read right away. I'm going to try not to buy any other books aside from new releases from now till the end of September. I'm going to save my money and maybe do the Wanderers part of Lila Wanders and read once I finish doing that. Now, again, there is one exception, and I was telling you earlier about that book about the Black Panthers, the tank division. I really want that. I want that to include that in my World War II library. So that will be an exception that I make because I need that book. And what I'm going to instead focus on in my week in books is going through some of the things that I have, kind of theming things, and I'm going off the cuff right now because I just really thought about this morning, so I don't know what I'm going to do for my week in books moving forward, but I know I've got to stop buying this many books. I went to the bookstore Friday, and I might have gone Saturday, and I definitely went today. It's redonkulous. It's redonkulous. So, anywho, I really want to kind of focus in on what I've got because I've got a shit ton of great books, and I'm not getting to them all. There's no way I could ever get to all of them, but I really want to spend some quality time with them and share with you what I have and kind of cull some of my books, do some unhauls. I don't like an unhaul. I don't like to get rid of books, but there are definitely some that I need to get rid of. Anywho. So, this has been a great reading year. I've bought a lot of good books. Now it's time to focus on them and read them. Anywho, if you are interested in any of these books, hey, I'll put the titles down in the comments in the description box below. If you have any other suggestions of Black Americans in World War II in fiction, please let me know, because I can't find any, and I'm not happy about that. I found 2, and there should be more than that. Anywho, that is all for me. Kind of rambled a little bit on my mid-year reflections, and I will see you on the flip side. Not sure what video I'm going to do next. That's it for me. Happy reading!